I was a competitive swimmer. So pretty much every day I was swimming. Then I went to the UK, and I worked in my 20s in a financial career. I worked in asset management in London before I came to Singapore in 2013. So I was very much in a different career path back then, but I always had sport and the philosophies of sport and what that taught me in my youth, guiding me through in how I led my life. So I took the step in 2015 to leave my corporate job in asset management and move over into triathlon coaching. So it was very scary at the time, but it was also very rewarding, in terms of a sense of achievement and how I could help others and really do more in my life. I really enjoyed my past career, but the new career just gave me an opportunity to add and help and enrich in a greater sense. So I've been a triathlon coach since 2015. I've been competing in events in Asia and throughout the world since then. And yeah, it's been great that I've got to know you and the whole Trifactor family in races throughout Asia.
The family.
Yeah, it is a family,
that's
for sure.
That's one of those, and it's not like a corny sense of the way, oh, we're all part of the family, but it's one of those things, if you guys aren't familiar with the sport of triathlon, one of the best things about it is the community. Even though we're all racing against each other, if someone's popped a tire, someone, needs help, like during transition area, early in the morning, people are always involved. People are the first ones to offer that assistance. And I like what you said earlier, Colin, when you said how you transitioned a big reason why you transitioned into the sport is because you understood the value of how the philosophy and how, the different principles that we learn in sport, how it enriches people's lives. So could you touch up a little bit about how it enriches people's lives on and off the course?
Yeah, so in terms of those life enrichments, I think as a young person, in my teens, swimming, I had a very dedicated swimming coach. What he taught in me was, proper planning, proper scheduling, proper goal setting. Because when you're swimming and looking at races, you need to plan, you need to have a target and have a measurable target and go for that. The same thing is if we're in school, if we're doing exams, you need to see how you get that A, B, or C, or whatever you're striving to achieve. Or if you're looking to go to a certain university, you apply that right across the field in terms of, the career or job that you want to do, or just in your general sense of happiness. So, I think sport teaches us a lot. It helps us be, more rounded individuals. A topic that we'll touch on later is, the state of the mind. I think sport frees the mind, and we can use the mind to free ourselves in sport as well. So I think there's a symbiotic relationship between sport and how we interact and how we become, I think, calmer individuals. So, whether you're an elite performance specialist or whether you just do sport 2 or 3 times a week to help you in your daily routine, it can play a role.
Absolutely. I want to, before we go into what these principles are, and I'm really excited for that, because we really are able to transfer all those skills that we learn in sport into everyday life, and we're actually enriched by it. Because as we mentioned before, when we look at sports, we have a definable, measurable goal, and we track what gets tracked and gets measured, gets optimized. And so there is a systematic regime. It's not just go into the gym and do what you can. It's very, very smart. You don't even go to exhaustion. So there's a lot of self-awareness that goes into that. And I am guilty of this. A lot of the times we do not actually apply those principles or those steps of visualization and goal setting and strategizing in our personal goals, and our personal goals for work, maybe, and our personal goals for our relationships. So it's nice to see how we can translate that strategy into everyday life. So my question is,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, you go.
When I mentioned earlier, one thing I wanted to ask you, you said that obviously sport and the mind have a symbiotic relationship, and how the mind is able to free the body, and the body's able to, sport's able to free the mind. How do you, Colin, how is your relationship with fear and struggle and discomfort? Because I think that's something that's a really big thing that we learn in sport as well, is our ability to be resilient, not only in the body, but in the mind, most importantly.
Yeah, like I think there's, as you say, there's different definitions of fear and struggle and pain. So is it the physical fear, the physical pain, the physical struggles, or is it the mental and emotional? So, you know, I think in sport we can, the first one that we can easily relate to is the physical, because in certain training sessions we've got to push ourselves through some barriers to become stronger. Obviously not every session we're going to be pushing through pain barriers, because then that would impact recovery, and you know, in terms of an overall plan, that would probably not be sensible. But I think, you know, in life we have many fears. You know, some people, you know, as an example, some people fear snakes, some people fear spiders, and it's how do we overcome some of those fears? Some of them may be overcome through visualization, some may be overcome through hypnotherapy. Thankfully, in terms of general fears in life, are just, you know, whether we actually go and do something or not. You have some people that are, I suppose, are doers, and some people that procrastinate a bit more. Like I've always generally been a person, you're given a task, you find a way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you learn by doing. And, you know, I think some people are comfortable with that approach, and others, you know, they need a bit more guidance. And you could potentially categorize the population into various buckets of person. So, and then it's having mentors and having people around those people that helps them to overcome those fears, because some people can do it on their own and just some people cannot.
Yes. Excellent. And I think we're going to touch up on a little bit I want to ask you later when we talk about one of the principles of your practice is, how do you get, as a mentor, how do you get someone who is more on the procrastinating, or maybe has a hard time finding that motivation for that fear exposure, or to just do the action? Because a lot of the times it is actually the action that disarms the fear itself, but it's that hesitation to do the action in the first place. So it's a vicious cycle. So I'll put a little bit of a dog ear on that, and I'll talk to you about that later. So
okay,
you were explaining to me over the phone or on our messages that, well, there's 3 beautiful principles that I want you to be able to share with our viewers. And the first, and one of the most important that I think we often overlook, not in the sense that we don't do it, and I'll give you guys, or I'll give it away, it's sleep and recovery and rest. You know, obviously we all sleep and recover and rest, but the quality and efficiency of that rest is something we often do not apply. And maybe it's because maybe we just don't completely understand how big of an impact it has on our well-being and our emotional and physical state. So can you talk a little bit about how you're able to make your sleep and rest and recovery as efficient as possible, so that you get and maximize the most out of your day?
Yeah, I think just stepping back a small bit, just in terms of sleep. And you mentioned that, you know, sleep we all take for granted. Our sleep is just in our lives. If we're thinking about how we're performing in work, how we're performing in sport, you know, everybody comes to me and, you know, they say, oh, I want to get faster. I want to do this. I want to do that. And we focus on, you know, improving their speed, improving their power, making them faster.
Yeah.
We talk about some holistic areas, but sleep, it's often overlooked. But the benefits and the performance impacts are huge. You know, just to cite, you know, 1 or 2 studies, I think, you know, there was a 2014 study that found that people who had, you know, less than 8 hours of sleep a night had they were 1.7 more times likely to experience an injury. Right, that's crazy. And also at the moment, we've got COVID-19 ravaging throughout. So, those people that slept less than 7 hours a night are more than likely 3 times more likely to get a cold or to pick up a virus that's circulating around in the community. So, I think if we're talking about, community and, anything that the community should be doing to help themselves combat the virus that we're experiencing at the moment is sleep better, is one of the first things. In terms of the kind of specific questions of, how do we engage with our athletes to have and have a better balance in terms of their lives, I think that one of the number one things that we need to do is kind of have better planning. Plan the day, plan the week ahead. If that sometimes that sounds easier said than done as well, because a time deprived person will say, oh, but Colin, I'm in back-to-back meetings all day. I just don't have time to think about these things.
And that's like, it's not the craziest thing. It's like you're driving in a car and you're running out of gas and saying, I don't have time to get fuel.
Yeah. But I think it's, if there is one point in the week where you can kind of step back and say, okay, this is my week ahead. This is the week ahead. How am I going? What are the most important things in this week? What are the key things that we're going to hit? These are the work meetings. These are if I'm an athlete, these are the training sessions. Oh, these are the 2 friends or 5 friends I have to meet. Prioritize.
Yes.
And prioritize. And then the main thing with sleep is trying to have as regular a routine as possible. And we'll hit on this point of consistency later on, because, I did the partying in my 20s and all that kind of stuff. And, having a, little sleep one night and a lot the next, but, that's not good. It just shifts everything off and we don't recover as well. We don't feel good. Our reaction time. Your reaction time is like you're drunk.
Yeah.
So and actually there's been a few studies on that it's the equivalent of taking a few drinks, a lack of sleep.
And it's so funny that I guess it's, again, it comes back to the point of I don't have enough time, or I'm too busy doing other things to not focus or prioritize the sleep, because we don't really understand how much reaction time am I actually missing. Oh no, I can get by. But it's only when you do, I'll be like a first person to say a testimony. Before COVID-19 happened, I wasn't the best with my sleep. I slept a long time, but I was not consistent. I didn't have that routine. My biological clock was not running on the same schedule. And I thought I was fine because, I'm sleeping enough. But even just oversleeping, or your biological clock not being in sync consistently throughout the week, that was affecting me. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me until I got on a regular sleep pattern. And once I did that, my sleep efficiency just cut down. I didn't need to sleep for 10 hours, even like 7 hours or 8 hours, but really solid. I didn't need to have coffee. I was constantly energized. The thing is, like, the body is so brilliant. It knows how to take care of itself and heal. But sometimes we don't give it the tools or the time to recover.
I think that's the exact point. And what you mentioned is what sleep does. It repairs the body. All the reparation is happening at night. It's cementing on the practices that we've done during the day, be it things that we've learned, be it actual physical motions that, let's say if it's in running, if we're doing a new running drill, that will be cemented by sleep. So if you do those things, learn something new, learn Spanish or Mandarin or whatever it may be, and you have 3 hours of sleep the following night, or even 6, then you're going to get impairment.
Yeah.
I think just some, just some of the sports stars, it's incredible how much some of the sports stars sleep. Like Roger Federer is the top tennis player. He sleeps 12 hours a day.
What?
So he does 10 hours at night, and then he has a 2-hour nap every day.
So, okay. How do you debunk certain, because there's two different, not myths, there's two different ideologies that are circulating around the globe. And the idea is like, well, if you oversleep or you sleep too much throughout the day, then you get that sense of lethargy. Your body or your mind can be a little sedentary. And then there's the idea that, oh no, actually, if you have consistent amount of sleep and your body is efficient enough, the body only actually needs 6 hours. And you're a lot of the times when you're having too long of a sleep, you're dipping into a deep sleep and then medium sleep and then short sleep, and then you get up and then deep, medium, short, and then I get up. Whereas if it's efficient, it's just deep, medium, short, up, and then that's all you need. And then there's the balance in between. So how do you find your footing amongst those three ideologies?
Yeah, like I think there's been a number of studies on the number of hours sleep needed for efficient athletic performance, and at what level does the athletic performance substantially decrease. And anything under 7 hours a night, and you're getting a substantial impact on athletic performance. I think the other thing, it depends on the type of person you are and what you do in your day-to-day life. So, elite athletes, they're going to be training more, they're going to be training harder, they're going to have a greater impact on their muscles and on their body. And other things, so they will need more sleep than your normal person. I think also it's when you sleep, when you nap, in terms of how efficient it is, what else you're taking in during the day, what stimulants you're putting into your body. So whether you're consuming alcohol or caffeine, it's your sleep regime, your practice later on in the evening, whether you're watching TV, whether you're suppressing melatonin, which is one of the key things that blue screens does. It makes it harder for you to sleep. Are engaging in some form of meditation, which may help your sleep practice later on in the evening. And you mentioned efficiency in different stages of sleep. People's sleep efficiencies are different. So you may have one person sleeping 8 hours a night and it's 80% inefficient sleep patterns, whereas somebody else might be 90%. But I think the key thing in all the studies that we've seen anyway is that anything less than 6.5, 7 hours, and you're really impacting if you're an athlete.
And let's talk very briefly on sleep hygiene and how, okay, everyone knows, okay, so I need to be able to sleep at least 7 or 8 hours, but like you said, the things that we do before we sleep in preparation is very often overlooked. When we plan our day, we always see, all right, well, I've got all this work done until about 9:30 p.m. So I guess when I finish 9:30 p.m., watch a little bit of TV till 10, and then I'll be asleep by 10:30. Whoa, Colin, tell me what you think about that.
Well, it's like when I'm trying to put my kids to bed. I like to do silly dances in front of the kids, and my wife says, "Why are you doing that? You're getting them more active. You're they need to start into their more calm routines." So I think it's all about eliciting calmness and getting the body knows it's ready for sleep. And I think that's one of the key things is, if you're in front of a blue screen, or if you've got an active brain, right up until, as you say, you finish work at 9 and your brain is active until 10:30, your brain is still going to be active. It's not going to shut off nice and easy, as opposed to if you're in a dark room, or if you're in a dimly lit room, potentially reading a book for 20 minutes before you go to bed, then or else doing meditation, then you're probably going to have a better sleep. I think also it's just trying to avoid a lot of drink. you know, so get your drinks in earlier in the evening. I think some people make the mistake, they work till 9, they'll check on Netflix or whatever, and you know, have a lot of water or a beer when they're watching TV, and then their sleep is interrupted because they're getting up at 3 in the morning.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
I like what you said earlier about, you know, the things that we do before we sleep, obviously because the brain is quite active, and a lot of it has to do, I believe, with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system throughout the day. Whether we are in high performance jobs or under a lot of demand or stress, or even just even if you have a phone, the amount of stimuli in this day and age is astounding, and it really is it's a lot to take for the nervous system. And so when there's all of these things exciting our sympathetic nervous system throughout the day, we need to have certain rituals or certain practices to be able to bring that down, and not to just, you know, to increase your fortify your parasympathetic nervous system before bed, but even throughout the days. Like, you need those pockets of time, because rest is not just when you sleep. You know, rest can be found in various areas throughout the day, especially, you know, when you hit that afternoon slump and you just don't, well, do I take a nap, or like, what do I do? Why am I in this slump? So can you talk a little bit about maybe an experience that you've had with your athletes and how you're able to balance the nervous system, and how you're able to prepare the body and the mind for those moments of rest?
But I think also in terms of, you know, some of the slumps that you have over the course of the day, that's kind of branching into another area. And I know you chatted about that, and I think one of the previous podcasts is what you put into your body. So are you putting items into your body that's going to spike insulin levels?
Yeah.
And are you going to have sugar spikes in the afternoon, and then that will lead you to being more lethargic and less productive? So, you know, I think sleep and food, and, you know, how you put food into your body, what macronutrients, and what's the mix of those macronutrients over the course of the day. So late at night, you know, are you taking stimulants? Are you taking foods that are highly processed, full of refined sugars? And if you are, then it's going to have an impact on the brain, and have an impact on the ability to quieten that down and get into a sleep state. So, you know, I think what we discuss with our athletes is what we put into their body when they're training. So I think those that train at, let's say, 10 p.m. in the evening and do an intense session, and it's an hour session, they're not going to be sleeping before midnight. So, you know, it really depends. If you're training in the evening and training hard, it depends on what job you're doing and what time you have to get up in the morning. So some people naturally like training in the morning, some like training in the evening, but if it's in the evening, it just needs to be at a time where you can allow some form of decompression after that training session.
Can you talk a little bit about times? What's the best time to sleep? Now, do you enforce the sleep patterns of the circadian rhythm, for example, with your clients, or with your athletes, or with yourself?
Yes. Well, in terms of my clients, we speak through it, but we don't implement any given set times. I think with myself, my body is used to waking up at a certain time, so it runs on a circadian rhythm. So, you know, I will so often wake up before my alarm goes. I don't need my alarm to sound. My body naturally wakes up. It's like my cats. So my cats operate on a perfect circadian rhythm. So they know when it gets dark that they come in, they get their food, they have a nap, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, bang on, they will come back. So I do think if you're in a regular pattern, a consistent regime, so again, we're hitting on, if you're in a structured approach, but there's not much variation. I think everything in this is hitting along that, in terms of what you're putting into your body. We don't want too much spikes in insulin. We want a consistent training plan. We want, a kind of time that you're going to bed at a similar time every night and getting up at a similar time every morning. I suppose if you've got kids, that's a lot easier to do, because you've got to get in that pattern.
Yes, exactly.
If you're in more shift jobs, and there will be a lot of people in shift work, where sometimes they may be working during the day and others they're working at night, it's just a lot more difficult to get into that. So I think they've just got to try as best they can to get the sleep in when they can, but it's not going to be in any form of natural rhythm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that's one thing you said is just about planning at the end of the day, not just being able to, if we are going to prioritize something, that means we schedule it in advance. And, obviously if it's something that, I guess, we'll just fit it in whenever. And usually the time when we just say that I'm just going to fit it in whenever, there's always much better things to do in our heads that we'd never actually go about doing it. But if we have something that's scheduled, there's a link to our experience and our behavior and our cognition. So if it's scheduled, you're more likely to do the things that are scheduled. And if it's just,
of course,
it's the language that you speak to yourself. If I'm saying, is this important enough that I'm going to write it down and I'm going to prioritize and spend the time doing it? So I guess it's just a matter of sitting and like in sports and in life, sitting down and asking yourself having a very honest conversation with yourself. What are my priorities? Do I want to live a life based on my priorities? Because at the end of the day, the two most important things in our life that we have is the value of time and our attention. So we have to be very, very careful where we put those two. And obviously sleep it's a no-brainer, but even though it's a no-brainer, it's funny how, again, guilty, how it's...
It's the first one that gets cut by many people. Many people feel that it's not as important. But I think with anything, taking sleep aside and some of the points that we're discussing, everything boils down to personal accountability. Being accountable for our own life, our own actions, our schedules. And if we have more personal accountability, then I feel that we'll become better at adhering to some of these principles.
I like what you say, personal accountability, because I think that's we often overlook how personal accountability has such an effect, a huge, profound effect on our well-being and how we view ourselves, whether we know it or not. When we are accountable to the things that we say we are going to do, or the things that we want to do, or the things that we know we should be doing and should be responsible for it. When we're not accountable to it, there's a psychological test with positive psychology, that when there's cognitive dissonance, when we don't actually do the things that we say or want or believe that we should do, we're off alignment. We're not in sync, and that has a lot of psychological detriment, because then what we don't know, the wheels are turning in the back of our head, or like, oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or well, maybe I'm not a person true to my word, or maybe I'm not the things that I want to be. And before we know it, that and it's something that we're not even aware of, but that self-worth actually diminishes, wherein if we have that personal accountability, it's something that we get empowered, and there's that drive, that hunger to do more, because we believe that we can, and we believe that we're worthy of it. So is there something that you've noticed, either in your personal practice or with your clients, or even just with your friends and family, how you've seen personal accountability not only show up in their performance, but show up in their emotional and mental well-being?
Yeah, like I think you see it quite often, really, because in what we do, performance coaching, we get very driven individuals. The individuals that come to us, they're typically successful in life. They do have a high degree of personal accountability, and in the sporting context, they know what they need to do to get to the goal that they set themselves. But also, when you see everything else they do in life, and when you sit down with them and, have coffee and just hear about the rest of their life and how they live it, it's mesmerizing at times in terms of what you hear. I've had people come to me, and some people have had massive weight loss, 20, 30 plus kg more, and that's the mind. That's they've decided themselves that they want to change their lives. The way that they're living their life at the moment is not suitable, and it's not what they want to do or not what they want to be, and they want to be I suppose a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a great thing about this career, is that in the past I was more dealing with money, and I enjoy that. I enjoy numbers, but this, you're really dealing with people and individuals, not only in the sense of their sporting aspirations, but you get to know them as people. You get to know them, I suppose, psychologically. You get to know their problems, and how they overcome those problems. So like, as it's not just, I suppose, a sports coach. You become a number of different things to some of these people.
Absolutely. And I think it's like what you said, they go hand in hand between the sport and the mind, and they are actively, I love what you said, it's a choice. It's a choice that they make. They say, I have a goal that I want, and they make a commitment to that goal, and they know what it takes, and they just do it. And it's often when we adopt that practice without even knowing it, we get into the habit of understanding that the motivation is not just going to come before the action. Sometimes, you got to put the work in, and then that momentum goes on top of each other. And it's very hard to be in that sport and to put the work in and see the results and not be empowered in every other aspect of your life, which is why I think it's fantastic, that we're not able to just, be involved with shaping our bodies in our strength and our endurance. We are shaping our lives and our minds as well. And so with that, I want to go into a very, very, one of my favorite principle of yours, which is meditation and visualization, and why goal setting in any aspect of our lives, whether it's in sports or in our careers or relationships or purpose, is so important. But to understand that it's not about the action, not just will yourself and discipline into just do the action, but it's actually more of a retrospective thing where the action comes from the source, which is the unique individual. And so you must first refine or have a vision for what you want that source to be. And when you refine that source, then the action becomes a manifestation rather than something you kind of have to force. So can you talk a little bit about how visualization and meditation and that inward work not only helps your well-being, but how it literally takes care of a lot of the different actions that we find so difficult to do when we first do that work from the source?
Yeah, like I think, everything deep within us drives us outside. So it drives what we do. It drives our confidence, our belief, and confidence and belief is something that's needed if we're to excel in sport or in life in general. So, something that we adhere to is, positivity breeds positivity. So, visualizing positive thoughts. There was a book out, a very, very famous book, The Secret. You've probably read it, and there's a number of topics in there and instances where, if you really believe something will happen, it will. And I think, some of us could say that is, it's crazy to think that, but I think it's again, if you're going down deep into your mind and having practices and thinking, and when you lie asleep at night, and if you're going through a routine where you're visualizing each individual step of that process, and you repeat that multiple times, hundreds of times, that happens. It certainly happened for me in terms of, you know, making changes in my life, going through various stages. I remember back, you know, when I was a teenager, you know, back 12, 13, 14 years of age, or swimming instructor at the time, we'd do a swim session at 6 in the morning. We'd get out of the pool, go into the gym. It'd be freezing in Ireland, but we'd all lie on the floor, and he'd turn off the lights, and he would just go through a series of meditation work and relaxation work with us, just to train the mind, to train us to believe that we can win, that, you know, train us to believe that, you know, every step of that process where, you know, we're walking to the blocks, how we walk to the blocks, how we take off our t-shirt, how we put on our swimming cap, how we put on our goggles, exactly how we step up to the blocks. Visualize starter's gun. Visualize how you'll push off. Every aspect. Swim that race, be it a race, be it anything in life. If you visualize it enough times, when you get to that moment that you want to do something, it just becomes easier because it's not something that's foreign.
Yes.
And I think that's a big fear for us, is that something unknown, something foreign, it's, can we actually do it? But if we've lived it in our head so many different times, then it's not foreign.
I love that. And it is very difficult to speak, I think, is in this culture theme when you talk about the secret or when you talk about visualization. And there's a bit of a stigma that I'm glad that you're debunking right now. It's the whole hippy dippy of like, well, that projecting, it's like wishing on eyelashes or dandelions. But in the actuality, I'm not sure. There's a beautiful book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma, who's also a performance specialist. And if you want to look at it in a practical way, that visualization, like you said, going through each of those steps, one, it creates, you remove the fear from it because it's the fear of the unknown and you become comfortable. You're literally rehearsing it. Yes, maybe your body is not doing it, but the mind can create a million different realities that your body all of a sudden starts to follow suit. And the other thing is, you are what you believe. First, things are created twice, you know, first in the mind and then in reality. And so if I believe that, let's say, just random example, if I believe that people don't like me, I will act as if people don't like me. And if I act as if people don't like me, maybe they won't like me. If I walk into a room with confidence, or I believe that I am deserving of abundance, if I believe and visualize that I can do the abundance because I visualize it in my head and I know it's how it's going to do. And it's building that self-belief and that confidence and that self-worth. Because when you believe that you are capable and deserving of abundance, you act like that. It's not that we're wishing, it's the body will follow what the mind believes. And that just becomes your identity. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Can you
and I just think on your point, you know, when you walk into a room, if you give off a positive or a negative vibe, like that is so how life is. And you know, that initial interaction, it drives people's relationships with each other so much. And it does take more to overcome those initial reactions. So, you know, having that positive vibe or that positive energy come through, it just yields, I suppose, more rewarding scenarios. And, you know, be that in sport, but especially if you're in the workplace, if you're meeting people, if you're trying to strike a deal with somebody, everything is about a personal relationship and giving off positive vibes in that personal relationship.
Because
so, you know, I think, yeah, exactly. So I think it's a lot is about, you know, not thinking negatively about something before it happens. You know, whether that, don't judge a book, or don't judge a book by its cover or whatever. You know, you make your own judgments. And a lot of this is kind of encapsulated by, you know, think positively and believe positively, and, you know, try and go and talk to people. or try and do something. It's as you say, it's always projecting yourself forward rather than retracting back. And I think retracting back, it just doesn't really help.
And I think there's a lot to say about with visualization is you are directing your focus in a positive way that is productive, that is going to yield the fruition that you want in your life. Whereas, okay, so I'll give a little story. When I was before COVID, I would constantly be performing in front of live audiences, thousands and thousands of people. And before I actually found my mental and self-awareness practice, I've always had this huge stage fright. Always this huge stage fright, so much to the point that I'd always have this fear in the back of my mind, like, I really wish I don't screw up on stage. It's going to be so bad if I screw up. I'm going to try so hard that I don't screw up. And so my focus is split. It's not on what I'm doing on stage. My focus is split between what I'm doing on stage and the fear of what might happen while I'm doing that on stage. And so as a result, my focus is not in the excellence, and it's being torn apart. So I'm more likely to make a mistake. Whereas if I step on that stage and my focus is fully on the visualization of, I am here to deliver a piece. I've worked on this piece. I remember every single thing that I've done to put this piece together, and I'm going to give it because it's come from my heart, and the audience will receive that. When I'm thinking about that, my focus and awareness is solely on what I am doing in the present moment. And I think that's a huge thing, especially with athletes, where our mindset is. If it's not in the present moment, forget about it. If we are distracted, it's you cannot possibly give your full focus and attention or your full performance, because the mind and the body is busy doing other things. So visualization is an excellent technique, and I'm so glad you brought it up, to be able to not only build that confidence, to make something foreign or scary more comfortable, to believe that you are something rather than something that you are not, and to be able to really harness your focus and remove that self-doubt. Speaking of which is probably one of the hardest things, is how do you remove that self-doubt? Obviously, consistency and perseverance is the cornerstone of excellence in anything, to continue even when you don't feel like continuing. So what do you say to yourself, or to the people that you've worked with, the people who are just like, I really just don't feel like it. I don't know. I know I want to do it, but it's not coming out of me.
I think with self-doubt, you have a series of small wins, and you try and consolidate those small wins, and you see progression and improvement breeds confidence. Confidence then feeds the mind feeds the performance. So it's a bit of a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
And like, I think with sport, the hardest thing, and the people I admire the very most, are some of the people that come to me and they're complete beginners. They can't swim. I'm a triathlon coach. They can't swim. They mightn't have cycled much. They're just fearful of going out on the road. So with the bike example, you just get them comfortable with the bike. You get them comfortable pedaling inside. You get them doing that. Then you take them to a safe place outside. It's all baby steps. But they're consolidating. So they're not cycling inside anymore. They're doing it in a safe place outside. And then they're moving on and on and on. And suddenly those baby steps become big steps.
Yes.
So
I think that's beautiful. We often, and I'm such a victim of this, because I'm a victim of my own mind. If you haven't noticed already, I was diagnosed with ADHD a long time. So I get stuck in my head. I think a lot of the times when we think about a task, before we even start, we get defeated because we compare ourselves with the finish line. We compare with where we are right now. Oh, I have to do all of this. Yes, when you compare yourself to a finish line from complete beginner to doing like a full Ironman, that seems impossible. But it's like what you said, like what breeds excellence isn't those huge strides. It's the little consistent small steps of courage that compounded lead, like even the 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. I love that. And it's just about starting and keep on keeping. And
exactly. It's building the pyramids. It's
yeah,
building Rome. It's, you know, how do you do any of these? You know, building the Statue of Liberty
yes,
or the Empire State Building. It's just step by step, step
yeah,
by step. You know how they build towers nowadays. You know, they're doing the core first. How quickly that comes up, and then everything fills.
yeah.
It's wonderful.
And
But
that
yeah, you
momentum is
need
beautiful.
momentum. You need a good foundation. It's just like, yeah, you need a good foundation in anything, and you need to build the proper foundation, be it in sport with your, you know, your base endurance, or be it in something that you learn. You need a certain number of words if you're speaking English or Spanish, and then you build upon that. So it's, I think it's taking it step by step, not becoming, you know, overwhelmed. I think that's the key thing, overwhelmed by the task ahead. And, you know, we can become overwhelmed in life, you know, be it, you know, in sport, somebody having to swim 3.8K in an Ironman.
Yeah.
How do I do that? You just get them doing 100, 200 meters at the start, or even less, to, you know, somebody looking for a career change, you know, moving from, you know, something, you know, a singer to working in banking, for example. How do you do that? It can be done. You just have to go about the steps about that. Be it learning a degree or other methods.
And it goes back to that present awareness, like rather than being overwhelmed because you're looking far into, and I guess that's all that anxiety really is, or fears. Like you're looking into the future for scenarios that haven't even happened yet, that you're not even looking at what's happening in front of you. And rather than looking at, oh, the huge Statue of Liberty that I need to make a year from now, it's just focusing on, what do I have to do just right now? I just have to put one on top of the other. And it's,
yeah, and I think it's also putting, it's putting, you know, your big kind of macro plan together, and okay, these are my goals and objectives in life, or for the next period, and what are these smaller sub goals that I need to achieve that will aid me in getting to that big goal that seems unachievable, but is if I persevere with some of these smaller goals. So I think it's right. I think it's easy to become overwhelmed, and easy to become, you know, swamped if you're getting into something new, or even if you're in something where it's all just seeming a bit foreign or too busy. Then it's a time just to step back, just to see what is the thing that's at issue. Is it, you know, is it a manpower issue? Are we getting too much business? What's the issue?
So putting all those three things together, I think, you know, one thing that I've really gathered from our conversation is taking the time to really to plan, and not just goal setting, you know, to be able to plan those little steps. The little steps that become long strides, that become the Statue of Liberty. I love that. And so how do you, especially like what you said, when you have a beginner that comes in, they are raw. They don't know what they're doing, which is why they come to you as a coach. And it's the same thing what you tell a beginner athlete and the person who wants to achieve a beautiful goal in their life, maybe, you know, to lose X amount of weight, or to be able to sing a song on stage, or to change a career. And as you did, I'm sure that was so scary to be able to go from one thing that you knew into a completely different realm. So what is it that you can share that gives you first the courage to make that transition, or to make that leap, that first step? And what practical tools or systems would you recommend, very simple basics, for people to have in set in their schedules or in their lives, in order to achieve their goals, for goal settings and strategizing?
Yeah, so I think with my personal situation, it was it was a leap of faith. It was something that I just knew I wanted to get into triathlon. I wanted to stay in Singapore. And I knew with the profession I was in, that was probably not going to be possible at the time. So it was, what do I do? Do I go somewhere and work in a role that I'm not going to be 100% fulfilled in? Or do I do something just a bit more fulfilling and result in less income, but more enjoyment, fulfillment, and something I can give others? So it was hard at the start, because there's always that balance between, earnings and security, and, the leap of faith where, you're going from here to here and you want to kind of start coming back up over time as you build a new business.
Very hard.
It's hard, but I found, I took it step by step. So I said, okay, what do we need to do to achieve this? So it's I suppose you take them all down. I write lists. I'm terrible. And I just put them all in my little spreadsheet. Being a maths person, and I go through my spreadsheet and my timelines, and I see what I'm achieving and when I'm achieving that. And with my business, the clients started coming in, and then it's measurable that the clients started doing well. In terms of specific things that a person can do to aid them, it's just sit down, have a kind of strategy session for your life. One thing that people do is at the end of each year, husband and wife, couples, they say, okay, what's our New Year's resolutions? Everybody does
and then
that.
that's it, and then just the resolution, and they don't map out.
Yeah, but it's my wife, she likes saying, okay, 10 things, put down 10 things you want to do new next year. And I've had it pulled back to me over time. Did we tick all these things off? So some of those are travel, some of those are work related, some of them are personal related in terms of becoming a better individual or a more rounded individual. So I think it's sitting down, stepping back and saying, okay, what do I want to get out of my life?
Yes.
Am I fulfilled? What are the areas that might add to that fulfillment?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
I think that's a beautiful question, because beautiful answer, because my last question was going to be, so how do you get people to take that first leap of faith? To take that scary start? We understand that, we need to be able to strategize so that we manage our expectations. And, it does take it creates more headspace when you get everything that's in your head down on a piece of paper, to plan it out, and then, okay, that's done and dusted. But the first steps always seems to be the hardest. And a lot of the times when we make resolutions, we've been conditioned in a way, all right, this year I need to work on this weakness, or this is probably what I should accomplish this year. Or if I'm going to be successful in my work, I should do this, or should do, should, so many shoulds that we forget the question, like you said, am I getting the fulfillment that I want out of my life? The fulfillment that I want out of my relationships, out of my personal goals, out of my enrichment, out of my spirituality, out of my physicality, my careers. And it's a tough question to ask. But I think the more we ask ourselves that, the more we give ourselves the more responsibility and the more freedom we have. Discipline is freedom at the end of the day, to make our own choices, but we still have to have that first conversation. So my question to you is, what was the conversation in your head when you made that leap of faith?
I think the conversation in my head was, the very first question is, will it work? Can I do this? Like, can it be sustainable? I knew I would like it. I love dealing with people. So, I think it's having, the ultimate thing is having belief in yourself, and then really putting the work in, putting consistent effort in. So, I found that it's very rare that you get something without working for it.
Yes.
So, you see the best footballers, the best golfers, the best tennis players. They do have natural ability, but they work and work and work. I saw on Netflix, the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary recently.
Yes.
The amount, he he had an abundance of natural talent. But he worked harder than anyone else, and he inspired all of those around him to work harder and harder and harder. So, you know, I think you have to encourage and nurture that will and that drive to propel you forward.
Yes.
So, you know, I think that's what we need to encourage, and as coaches, that's how we need to encourage people.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that, you know, because a lot of times, I know I certainly have thought this in the past, a lot of the times people get afraid when you say the word work. Oh, it's going to be a lot of work, because we like what is easy. You know, we are creatures of comfort, because we're built to, our brains are naturally built to find what's wrong in order to adapt and survive and pass on a gene. And so work does not, you know, stepping out of our comfort zone does not sound fun. And so we can be comfortable and just stay where we are. But I think the magic or the secret that a lot of these people who, yes, have a lot of talent, but have put in so much work isn't necessarily, yes, there's a goal. Either they want to get a title, but they understand that the reward that comes from putting in all of your heart and your effort and all that work, doing something wholeheartedly, the reward that comes from that is second to none, because it's actually fulfillment of purpose. We all have this innate potentiality inside us, and it is just up to us to take the time to locate it, to be aware of it, and to nurture it. Because we can live comfortably, but that's the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life that's filled with purpose and meaning. And we find, like with Michael Jordan, he had that work and he found his purpose to be fulfilled. And when you have that fulfillment, you cannot hold that much joy and power and fulfillment without it coming and exuding from you and into the lives of other people. And I guess that's the question: does my life have meaning and fulfillment? Like, how much am I contributing to my own happiness, but also how much am I contributing to the happiness and the love and the energy of other people? So having said that, with struggles and the work, can you give us a little bit of a raw inside scoop on maybe a struggle that you had, a work that you've had that, you know, maybe at the back of your mind wasn't something that you were looking forward to, an obstacle that you had to overcome, but when you did, what did it feel like? Can you give me a little example?
I think, you know, one of the obstacles was changing careers, and I think we've talked through that. You know, in terms of other obstacles in my life, it was less obstacles. I would say it would be more challenges. I remember, you know, traveling around China when I was an 18-year-old with my two friends, not speaking Chinese, and you know, going in. It was very scary. It was the total fear of the unknown. And, you know, we actually, because we didn't speak any Chinese, we ended up going to the wrong places, you know, going on the wrong boats, stuck in places. And it was, you know, those obstacles actually yielded very good memories that we'll never forget. So, you know, I think sometimes when things don't necessarily go right or go according to plan, they can make people stronger. You know, some of those days there, it was pretty horrendous in terms of what we were going through, but we got through it, and we talk about it to this day.
I love that. I think because we're such creatures of habit, there's a Stoic philosophy that talks about, you know, literally subjecting yourself to something scary or something that you're not used to, something outside of your usual path of operation, because we all live with fear. We live with fear because we have expectation, and we don't like what we don't know. But the more I think that we disarm that fear by maybe like stepping into it and leaning into it, it's like what you said, those little steps, they add on top of each other until the more scary things you do in life, I'm not saying like you should look for danger, but the more you challenge yourself, the easier it becomes. So I never in a million years thought I would ever do a triathlon. It was the hardest thing. I remember when I first tried it with Elvin at Trifactor, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. I was like, why did I do this? But I knew in my head, if I can just get through this, I can get through anything. And that's exactly what happened. It's proving to yourself, proving to your mind that you are capable, even though when you think that you don't. It's the mind that needs convincing sometimes.
Of course. And in triathlon, you know, you see some incredible people. You know, you see some people that don't have legs and they do an Ironman course.
Oh my gosh.
Or people that don't have arms and they complete the swim, a 3.8K swim. These people are absolutely phenomenal. And you know, Ironman has the mantra, anything is possible. And it sure is when you see some of these people, they're absolutely inspiring.
I love that. I love that. Okay. As we wrap up with anything is possible, I'm going to ask you a question I like to ask everyone, because at the end of the day, we like to take home something practical, something that people can practice at home, something that, you know, either something about their recovery or their sleep, maybe an intervention, a tool on meditation, or even just practical ways on how to set your schedules, which I think we talked about before. But either if it's about that or something that's in your own personal practice, what is your secret sauce? So that thing that Colin does without fail, that just gives him that bit of an edge to who he is as a father, as a competitor, as a coach, as a mentor. So what's your secret sauce, Colin?
I think it's really boring. I think it's consistency, it's scheduling. It's just
boring. That's hard.
Just having application. But in terms of what helps me with everything else, I think it's yoga. You know, I think yoga really just helps relax my mind, and also just from an athletic performance perspective, it just helps all of my muscles as well. So, you know, I just find, you know, just a deep sense of calm when after I do a yoga session, and you know, the rest of my day is relatively intense. So, you know, that just brings me down. It grounds me, and I think everybody, it's just if we have a time where we can step back somewhat from everything, even if it's 5 minutes. Absolutely. Even if you just close your eyes before you go to bed, you think about certain things and just bring your heart rate down and relax. Yeah. You know, I think that's the secret sauce. It's not too secret, but it helps me.
But you know what? I mean, that's one of my secret sauces as well. I think many times, especially athletes, you know, people are getting more progressive now, and people are implementing it more in their lives. But you know, yoga is such a powerful tool. Not necessarily if you can get your mind off of the, you know, the spirituality, and if it's spirituality that you seek, fantastic. But it's so much more than that as well. It's so much more than just a bunch of different poses that you can hold for an extended period of time. Because at the end of the day, yoga means union of body, mind, and soul. And as we experience our day, there's so many different stimuli and triggers and obstacles or challenges that try to pull us off our balance or pull us off of our baseline. And taking that time, as you said, to just come back, to reel yourself in, and to bring the body and the mind and the heart back in alignment, and to find that stillness. There's something in that when you actually, it's some neurological studies that when you practice that and you boost up your parasympathetic nervous, you actually access a higher frequency of thinking. That the body has and the mind has everything it needs to excel if we give it that time. If we give it that time to be still and to breathe. So what is it about yoga? What do you do? Like, I just want to pick your brain a little bit more. Are there certain like practices or moves or a breathing exercise or a mantra or a meditation that you specifically like to do at a certain part of the day?
I think it's just going through just some flows, just some, you know, sun salutation, downward dogs, just going through a normal flow, stretching my body out. And then just towards the end, just staying in shavasana for an extended period of time, and just being with myself and really just letting myself kind of relax. So I just that just brings everything back down for me, and it grounds me.
Excellent. It's a beautiful word. Okay, so as we close, Colin, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your principles. I know, it's amazing to interview someone who is so into sports, but to be able to extract the principles and the values of all of this, and to see how it relates to everyday life, and how it relates to flourishing in life. And I hope our viewers have gotten as much insight out of this conversation as I certainly have. And guys, this is a community at the end of the day. This channel, this practice is made by the community and for the community. So when we create content here, we don't want to just talk about the things that we want to talk about. We want to talk about something that's relevant, something that will help you. So please make sure that you guys leave us some comments, maybe tell us some stories of how you've been able to use this practice in your own personal lives, or if there's a story that you want to share, maybe that our viewers will benefit from. And if there's anything that you want to know, we'd be happy to be able to connect you to amazing professionals and human beings like Colin, to yourselves. So to wrap things up, I know that this is certainly a difficult time for everyone around the world, and our well-being and our health is our first line of defense. So Colin, is there something that you can say just to our viewers, just some words of encouragement throughout this time, some encouragement not just to relieve themselves of maybe some worries, but maybe some encouragement to use this time as an opportunity to flourish and thrive?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think a lot of us are working from home now. We don't have travel time to work, so we can use that time efficiently. So I do realize that many people have kids at home, but for those that do have a small bit of extra time, even working out a few times a week, it'll improve your blood pressure, it'll reduce your BMI, you'll just be fit and healthier, less likelihood of contracting illnesses. So it will help. And I think all the statistics that we have seen on COVID certainly show that if you're fit and healthy, you're less likely, not immune, but certainly less likely to contract an illness like this. So, I think this is giving us an opportunity to do something different in our lives, to engage in new practices. So hopefully, be it nutrition, be it sport, be it meditation, hopefully that, you'll think about doing one of these things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Colin. I really appreciate that. Guys, once again, Colin O'Shea, awesome guy, amazing father, amazing athlete, great coach and mentor. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Colin. Say hi to the wife and kids for me. Thank you, guys. See you on the next session. Take care.